The entire wrestling world is talking, and it felt like a Notsam bat signal had been put in the air. I have so many thoughts. As I'm sitting there this morning, I'm doing my radio show on Sirius XM. We take a commercial break. I see what's going on Twitter, and this is what I see. Cody Rhodes gone from AEW. Statement goes out first from Cody Rhodes. I have loved my time at AEW. Amazing locker, already, first sentence. Oh my God. Amazing locker room, amazing fans, amazing people. The revolution was indeed televised, and I've been incredibly lucky to be a part of that. First, I want to thank Tony Khan. He's taken the baton and run with it, and it was an honor to work for him and to know him on a personal level. By the way, very interesting that he says he's taken the baton and run with it. He didn't say that. He said that basically Cody started the thing and Tony took it from there, which I think is very telling and not necessarily wrong. He's a beautiful soul. Obviously need to thank my incredible wife and the mother of my baby girl, Brandy, for all of her love and support throughout this journey together and the amazing relationship she fostered with Culture City and the American Heart Association. I also need to thank Nick and Matt Jackson. These two, whether they know it or not, took an undesired and not confident little cub and gifted me the confidence to become a leader of the pack. Kenny Omega, Chris Jericho, Chicken, we started the fire. I must thank Tim W., Keith M., Greg W., and the amazing production crew who understood and captured the vision with such grace. I can't name everybody, but thank you, Mega, Margaret, Harrington, Jeff Jones, Dana, Tony Schiavone, Byrne Raff, and the hardest worker in the game, QT Marshall, for propping me up and kicking me in the ass when I was running on fumes. I must thank all my kiddos, MJF, Jade, Sammy, Darby, Lee, Ricky, Tom, The Guns, Brock, Velvet, Nyla, Aubrey, Turner, Vanilla, Solo, Spears, Julia, Anna, Will, Wardlow, Sonny, Fuego, One, and of course, -1. While we're at it, give Jade the Cody Vader. Also, need to take a moment to thank the great partners at Warner Media, including Brett, Sam, and the rest of the team. I have so many milestones and beautiful memories of this renaissance. Through sweat, blood, tears, literal fire, and all that, I left it all on the mat. Everything pales in comparison to the final contribution. I was empowered to lead at the company, the community outreach team. In the most inward moments, your outward behavior and your ability to take fame, influence, and do something of value for the communities you visit, whether the cameras are on or off, is the highest honor. I am confident Amanda Huber will lead the department with style. I'm so proud of my creations and contributions and the items I supported or collaborated on with such wonderful professionals. Thank you, fans. Y'all did the work. Let's live forever. Holy shit. Then AEW puts out a statement. Cody and Brandy Rhodes were integral to the launch of All Elite Wrestling. Cody's ability combined with his boldness and his passion for our industry and his love for community outreach helped AEW deliver on our mission to give the fans what they needed for far too long. Something new, innovative, and lasting. Brandy helped us shape the AEW story, and I appreciate how hard she fought for us both in the ring and out of the ring, competing in the women's division while advancing our efforts at inclusion in civic causes, including great partnerships with Culture City and the American Heart Association. I have immense respect and appreciation for Cody and Brandy, and I wish them both the best as they move on from AEW. Thank you, Cody and Brandy. Tony Khan, CEO, President, General Manager, and Head of Creative, All Elite Wrestling. That is a lot of hats for one man to wear. However, one hat that Cody Rhodes apparently is no longer wearing is EVP, as well as the hat that says professional wrestler for All Elite Wrestling. This is huge. This is massive. And the reason it's huge and massive is not only because it's the first high-profile send-off from AEW, but it's one of the true pillars, right? AEW is basically founded on the foundation that was built by the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, and Kenny Omega. The Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, and Kenny Omega, and what they did outside of the system is what led to Tony Khan investing the money needed and making the deals needed to create AEW. So, Cody Rhodes gone from AEW. Where does this lead us? Well, first of all, is it a work? That's the question everybody's asking. And for you guys that listen to this podcast every week, it's a great question to be asking right now, as only 24 hours ago, I dropped a podcast that was basically a dissertation on what my concept of new kayfabe was. Is this new kayfabe? Well, the beauty of new kayfabe is you never should know that it's new kayfabe until after it's happened. So if it is, we don't know. Do I think it's a work? No. In no way, shape, or form do I think it's a work based on what I know of the parties involved, based on the people that I've spoken to, based on the way it was done. I don't personally think it's a work. If it is a work, the only person in wrestling right now that would pull off a work like this is Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, because what it would take, it would take not only working the public, it would take working the locker room of both AEW and WWE, and it would take, most importantly, working the network. You have to work Warner Media. Otherwise, this stuff would leak. And Cody is directly involved because he's an EVP. It's a much higher scale of a work. If there's anybody that can pull off a work on the level of a Brian Pillman work, Brian Pillman, who convinced WCW to give him a real release, even though it was just a work, so that way he could show up in ECW and the whole world would think he was actually gone from WCW, and then he would return, and then when he was building that work, worked that work by actually signing with WWE since the WCW release was indeed real. If anybody is working on that level in 2022, or has the ability to work on that level in 2022, it's Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes has one of the deepest wrestling minds of anybody I've ever interacted with. It's incredible the level of depth that he will go to for a storyline. All that said, so how surprised would I be if this turned out to be a work? Not that surprised. But I don't think it's a work. Honestly, I think we win either way. I don't think there's any way that fans don't win in this scenario. If it is a work, AEW gets injected with some amazing creativity that I personally think they've been lacking. If it's not a work, then the level of competition has been brought to a place where it has not been before. Now, I'll get into that, but the first question would be, okay, if it's not a work then, why would Cody Rhodes leave AEW, a company that he helped build? And there's a lot of reasons. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. All we know as fans is what's presented to us on television and in arenas. It could be strictly a financial decision. You know, maybe in the years that Cody has been in AEW, as somebody who helped, was a founder of the company, maybe he's watched big names come in and get paid big money. Maybe he's watched creative shift. Maybe he's watched the way the company is run start to shift. I can tell you what we know is that the company that we watch now is not the same company that it was when it was born. AEW 3 years ago or whatever it was is a very different company than the company that we see on TV today. AEW, as it was pitched, is a very different company than the company that we see on TV today. And I don't think that's a problem. I think that any company has to move and evolve and may not figure out exactly what it is. It could know what its intentions are, but may not figure out exactly what it is until it grows its full-grown legs. It's like a baby deer trying to walk. But that said, if when it grows those legs, it becomes a different company than one of the founders had envisioned, and maybe he feels like his vision is slipping away while the company moves over here, then maybe he realizes it's time to step away. Maybe bigger names are getting paid more money. Maybe he just wants to make more money. Maybe he feels like everything that he can do in AEW has been done. We can speculate all day. But to think that there's no way that there could be a reason for him to go is obviously incorrect, right? There are plenty of reasons that you could concoct without actually knowing what's going on that could potentially make sense. I go back. I was thinking about the conversations that I've had with Cody Rhodes here on the podcast. You can go back and watch those interviews on the Notsam YouTube channel as opposed to the Notsam Wrestling YouTube channel, which we do now. But one thing that he always came back to, right? Because the question is, where is Cody going to go? News reports are that he's out of the company. He's left. His deal had already expired, which means there is no 30, 60, 90-day non-compete. That theoretically, Cody could go work anywhere that he wants to right now. That's what these news reports online have said. So what is he going to do? There are some that question the idea that he would go back to WWE. If he's not going to go back to WWE, what's he going to do? Not to say that he couldn't do anything else, but to say, what is there for him to do that has a significant value that he hasn't done before? I guess he could be an actor. I mean, he could do reality TV the full time. But if you're doing reality TV, part of the hook, if you're Cody, is that you're a full-time wrestler and the reality TV camera is following you. You know, I wouldn't say that you go, oh, the stuff that he was doing as well as being a wrestler, now he's just going to do that. Well, then why would he stop being a wrestler if he was already doing that? So I don't buy that, right? In terms of wrestling, because that's what we should be talking about. Some would say, well, I hope he goes off and sets the indies on fire. I hope he joins Matt Cardona, some might say. He's done it. Let's be honest. Matt Cardona is doing an incredible job of following in Cody's shoes, and that's proving what you can do independently. Cody, since leaving WWE, has increased his value as much, if not more, than anybody ever has. And that's not just because of AEW. The reason AEW is formed is because of what he did between the time that he left WWE and AEW was formed. I'm talking about Cody making the list. Cody doing what nobody had really done, which was quit WWE and then make his list of people that he wanted to work with and promotions that he wanted to work for. And the things that he was doing on the independents. And the things that he was doing in Ring of Honor. And the things that he even did with Impact Wrestling. Like the way he just started lighting stuff on fire. And that's what brought Cody and Kenny and the Bucks together. That's what, when he joined up with the Bullet Club guys and started going like this, making everywhere that he went buzzworthy. Now, you could say, I hope he does that again, but he already did it. You'll never be able to do it bigger than the first time you did it. When Cody did it the first time, it hadn't really been done before like that. Cody could start his own promotion. He did it. It was called AEW. To leave a promotion that you started to start another promotion, maybe, but I don't see it. For Cody to do it again, he would just be doing what he's already done before. And I don't see Cody doing that. And here's why. Because if you go look at that one of the interviews that I did with him after he left WWE, I think he's brought this up in a couple of interviews that we did together. He talks about his dad. And, you know, he cited his dad when he made his decision to leave the WWE. That he talked to Dusty and said that he wasn't happy with how he was being used, and Dusty was the one that said, if you don't like it, leave. And that's what made him leave. And people are bringing that back saying, well, he's not going to go back to WWE, trust his dad's word. Here's one of the key things that always hit me that his dad said to him. I don't know if these words are as meaningful to him as they are to me, but I think they are because he's brought it up more than once. And that's the emphasis that Dusty Rhodes, his father, put on your body of work. That Dusty didn't put the emphasis on one night or one run or one anything. It was the entire body of work. What is the story that's being told? And when you look at Dusty's career, you look at a career that was really exemplified by an amazing body of work. Whether you talk about the run that Dusty had as a main event guy throughout the 80s, you know, as the NWA champion and his rivalry with Ric Flair and all that stuff. I mean, the lives that he touched in that period of time. People would think that, like, you know, going to the WWE and wearing the polka dots was a shameful thing, but I don't think so. And I don't think if you were able to ask him, he would think so either. Because it showed the world that he could also be a sports entertainer, quote unquote. And when he was done with that, he went over and became the booker in WCW, and then he became a commentator, and then he became this. And at the end of his run, at the end of his life, he was the creative force behind the next generation of WWE superstars. He was the most respected creative force when it came to building the next generation of stars in NXT, and that's what he's remembered for. He's remembered for his body of work. And I think Cody wants to be remembered for the same thing. I think Brock Lesnar did an interview on Pat McAfee's show this week when he said that he didn't care about his legacy, he didn't care about the Hall of Fame, he didn't care about any of it. I think Cody Rhodes cares deeply about his legacy. And the reason that Cody left the WWE, I think, is because he wasn't going to be a main event star. It's because whether it was the stuff he did as Dash and Cody Rhodes, the stuff he did as Stardust, the stuff, all of it resonated, all of it he committed to 100%, but he knew he wasn't slotted in that position to ever be the top guy, so he left. What has he not done? What does he need to do? Be the WWE champion. Main event in WWE. This is not the same Cody Rhodes that left. This is an incredibly more valuable, a much bigger star than left the WWE. If Cody Rhodes goes back to WWE today, he's not Stardust. I joked around on Instagram about it, but of course not. He's not Stardust. He's not dashing Cody Rhodes. He's not wearing a protective face mask. He's Cody Rhodes. He's going to come out in the full regalia. He's going to come out in the jacket. He's going to come out in the tie. He's going to look like the star that he is. He keeps the blonde hair. Because let me tell you the other thing. People go, well, Cody can't go back to WWE because what kind of faith do you have in their creative? He left the first time because the creative was so bad. I will tell you this, my opinion. I believe that anybody who will walk away from a company that they created 3 years in probably feels strongly enough that they will reject creative that they don't like. I think Cody is in a position right now where he will not accept, to an extent, creative that he does not like. I don't think Cody would return and be that mid-card guy. So, and it's not going to happen anyway. I think that WWE, I have faith in WWE that they see the value in this. That a top AEW superstar who's one of the founders of the company, who's an EVP, an employee, the whole thing, along with his wife, decided to come home. You don't even have to tell that story. The story tells itself. And it's incumbent, I believe, on WWE to really showcase why that decision was made. And I think that the audience is going to tell the story anyway. Cody Rhodes does not come back to WWE as anything but a main event guy. When you look at what could Cody do if he came back to WWE, I think there's only one thing to do, right? Because he's not going to go to WrestleMania and main event with Roman Reigns, obviously. But I also don't think he should go to WrestleMania to main event with Roman Reigns. Because guess what? If Cody returns to WWE within the next 6 weeks, and it's enough time to go to WrestleMania and main event with Roman Reigns, he ain't beaten Roman Reigns. And to take this amazing moment, and within weeks have it end with a loss to Roman Reigns in the main event of WrestleMania, well, then it really was. They really did just get Cody Rhodes to feed him to Roman Reigns. And I don't think that Cody's going to do that. I don't think that WWE is going to do that. I think there's only one thing to do in this scenario. I mean, you heard the AEW audience when Cody Rhodes was in the ring and the rumors first started circulating that he didn't have a contract. They were chanting Royal Rumble. There is a desire to see Cody make this move just because it's such a big deal. If I'm anyone, if I'm the WWE, if I'm Cody, if I'm whatever, the move to me is for WWE to sign Cody immediately. Give him big money. He deserves big money. He's going to bring eyeballs to the product. This is the thing that wrestling needs. Everybody, even people that don't watch WWE or AEW, know on some level, Cody Rhodes, doesn't he like own AEW or something? They know that this is a big deal. This is going to be an industry mover. You go to the chamber on Saturday. You have Roman distract Brock Lesnar. Even if you were going to have him win that chamber match, Brock Lesnar loses the chamber match. Bobby Lashley walks out of the chamber as the WWE champion. Bobby Lashley shows up on Raw, says, maybe I'll just take the night off at WrestleMania. And Cody Rhodes comes out to challenge Bobby Lashley. These are your main events for WrestleMania. Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes versus Bobby Lashley. Universal Championship, WWE Championship. And you can have Cody, I mean, if you think about it, you want to 2 nights in a stadium? Especially with the rumors circulating now that Steve Austin could or could not be coming back. I was going to talk about that. Maybe we'll talk about it on Monday. But already on paper, you've got Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey. Becky Lynch is going to be defending the title against somebody. Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. Lashley versus Cody Rhodes. And Lashley versus Cody Rhodes can easily headline night one. Especially if you tell that story right. And I believe that Cody Rhodes will be afforded the opportunity to be much more hands-on with his storyline. Vince McMahon will have to approve everything as he's always done. But let's be honest. Cody is walking in there, and people go like this. They go, well, after everything Cody did, why would they even have him back? You know, he hit the chair with a sledgehammer on pay-per-view. How could you? He took a shot at WWE on TV. How could you? It's television. All's fair in love and war. What difference does it make? It's wrestling. If anything, Cody is coming back. Like, there's this old rule of thumb. If you're so good, prove it elsewhere. Brock Lesnar did that. Cody Rhodes has done that. Cody walks back into WWE with the biggest chip on his shoulder of all time. Because every challenge that's been put in front of him, Cody has mastered it. Cody has come out on top. So that's the move to me, is to take this guy, and I believe he will. I believe he will want that body of work, and who knows, you know? Maybe after he's a headliner at WWE for a period of time, whether it's a year, whether it's 2 years, whatever it is, maybe he'll go back to AEW to prove that he can be a headline guy over there too, to just continue to build that body of work. Who knows? Maybe between now and this evening, Tony Khan and Cody Rhodes will meet again and come to a deal. And maybe Cody will be on Dynamite this week. Who knows? But I do know that we win either way. If this is a work and it turns into an elaborate storyline on AEW TV, it's going to be a great thing to watch. And a storyline the level of which we need. The storyline that we haven't had in AEW. AEW's had great matches, but very few storylines. If this is shootski, if this is real life, this is competition. Competition is not AEW and NXT running on the same day. Nobody cares. That wasn't a war. Competition is WWE and AEW. And competition is not AEW signing guys that get released from WWE. Competition is when people start jumping back and forth. Competition is guys that bounce out of WWE, figure out how to get out of there just to go to AEW. And then when guys go from AEW over to WWE, that's when it starts to get interesting. That's when it starts to become competition. And competition is going to be good for us. I get hesitancy. I get why you might think to yourself, I don't know, can't trust WWE creative, this and that. You know what they did with Cody before. You know what they did. Yeah. But the reality is that if you think it's going to be like, Cody versus The Miz or something at WrestleMania, it might be. I doubt it. I don't think WWE would waste the creative opportunity that they have here, and I don't think that Cody would be okay with that. That's one thing that I don't think Cody is going to do. Sign a deal strictly for money where he just goes back to doing whatever they tell him. That's not going to happen. You don't have independence and then sell it. What you do is you build your value, and then you come back to the place where you truly want to make an impact. Don't get me wrong here. There's no doubt about it. Cody has always wanted to be a main event guy in WWE. Why wouldn't you? Could he end up in the NWA? Yeah, he did it. He had a match with Nick Aldis. What's he going to be? Part of the new Ring of Honor? I guess. But all that will prove is that he was never a main event guy in WWE. And when we look at the body of work, your body of work, what is missing from Cody's body of work? He's been a top guy in AEW. He's been a top guy on the Indies, top guy in Ring of Honor, top guy in Impact Wrestling. What is missing from his body of work? You can't convince me that Cody is happy being a guy who was never a top guy in WWE, and it just didn't work out, so he made it work out someplace else. No. You know what made Cody happy, I think? Not being a top guy, leaving, making yourself a top guy, and becoming such a top guy that you go back to WWE, and they have no choice but to put you in the WWE Championship match at WrestleMania. Because that's exactly where Cody needs to be if he's going to be back in WWE for WrestleMania, in the WWE Championship match. And quite frankly, and we would have more conversation about this if it actually happens and the story builds over the course of several weeks, and then I'd be able to tell you. But right now, as I sit here, I believe Cody will come back as a super babyface. And I believe that WrestleMania is the night that Cody wins the WWE Championship. Why? Because he deserves it. And more importantly, because it'll knock the wrestling world on its head again. And when you have the opportunity to knock your industry on its head, you'd better take it. Thank you, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Notsam Wrestling. If you want more, we'll be back on Thursday. Patreon exclusive for the Notsam Shills at patreon.com/Notsam Wrestling. And who knows, based on how this week has gone already, maybe I'll be back for more emergency pods. Thank you. Have a good one, everybody.
Thanks for listening. Follow at Notsam on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Rate, review, and subscribe. This has been Notsam Wrestling.